Modified MR2s once raced in the 24 Hours of Le Mans. A single road car was built in order to meet the event's requirements. This car was known as the MC8, and thanks to a tip from a viewer, I'm now in contact with its owner. Guys, we found him. And he has a name. He wants to be identified as Y, and so I'll be referring to him as Y-san from here on out. He's a pretty private individual, so again, I want to respect that. And I do want to get to your questions. I know I took down a lot of questions from the MR2 community, and he was gracious enough to answer them. But first, I wanted to give you a little bit of context here. First of all, I'm not an automotive journalist, and most of you, I think it's pretty obvious. I'm just a guy on the internet. The whole reason I got sort of involved in this whole mess is because when I first learned about the MC8 and this story about 10 years ago, there was a certain mystique that drew me to it. I did actually make an effort initially to reach out to professionals, to automotive journalists, but none of them seemed to really care when I reached out. I think the issue is it doesn't have real mass appeal in the automotive community, and that's part of the reason why you have a guy on the internet covering it. So I'm relying on you guys to help. And that's exactly what happened here. One of my viewers, Ola from Poland, she's an MR2 enthusiast, tipped me off, let me know, hey, there's an Instagram channel, Instagram account called MC8 channel. And it's run by the lone MC8 owner. But what you're probably waiting for are the questions. And so let's go ahead and get into those now. First of all, I'm not fluent in Japanese, so I did hire a translator. Y-san had seen my videos, and I think that's part of the reason I got a good response from him, and he was, again, very gracious to answer some of these questions that you guys had. So let's get started. Y-san is in his 30s. All he would say is that he was born and raised in Japan, and didn't want to reveal his exact location. But based on this sighting from Shakotan Today, I'm guessing he resides somewhere in Western Japan. It's funny, I always had this sort of romantic idea that someone affiliated with SARD picked up the car and was taking care of it again. But that's not the case. Y-san's just a normal guy. He picked up the car in 2016, but didn't get it road ready until mid-2018. This is because he had to struggle, I guess, with getting the vehicle registered. For some reason, I never thought about it. It's basically a race car, and yeah, it took some convincing, but yeah, street legal race car, pretty cool. He's changed very little on the car, and that's probably a good thing. His plan is to keep it as original as possible, but there was an issue with the tire rubbing, from what I understand, is there may have been some of this lost in translation, but the tire was rubbing between the front bonnet. Here's a picture for you to look. Basically, he had some issues and had to make a modification there. Yeah, this is an interesting one. I learned that he's actually not an MR2 enthusiast. Basically, he thought it'd be cool to own a piece of history, had the opportunity. He's never owned an MR2 before, so he can't compare, unfortunately, the MC8 to an SW20. But he has owned a first generation NSX. From what I understand, he hasn't been able to take the MC8 to its limit and get an accurate comparison, but he basically said it's a very intense vehicle. This one's pretty funny. Some of you wanted to know what the odometer reading was, and the answer is he can't check it. There isn't one. This is Y-san's only collector car currently, but he does have some dream cars, the Lotus Elise GT1 and Jaguar XJ220C. Some of you wanted to know how much the car cost, and I think this was addressed previously when it went up for auction. I believe it was around $30,000, which doesn't sound like a lot because we're excited about this car, but most people aren't, and I think he got a good deal because of that. I actually didn't ask him because I didn't want to offend him. This was, of course, the most requested question, and I really wanted to get some footage, guys, to release with this video, but unfortunately, it's just not going to happen. We're going to have to rely on Y-san to release this at his own pace, again, respecting his privacy, or there's the possibility that I could work something out with a friend of mine in Japan or maybe even Shakaton Today. I know they're based there as well. So if they want to do a collab, you can ask them to hit me up. At any rate, Wai-san does plan to eventually release some videos. He's thinking about starting a YouTube channel because you guys are so enthusiastic. If not, I'm sure something will show up on Instagram eventually. Of course, the ultimate thing would be to see this car in person, and that may be a possibility. He is looking at different events that he can attend, so I know I'll be staying tuned for that. So where do we go from here? Well, make sure to follow MC8 channel. Follow Ola, because she's awesome. Thanks, Ola. Check out Shakaton Today, guys. Links in description. And as always, I really enjoy making these videos, so if you want to see more like them, please like, share, and subscribe.